Now, dissent in Russia is normally silenced without delay, especially if it involves criticism of that war in Ukraine. But the Kremlin appears unsure how to deal with one group of dissenters, the wives of mobilised Russian servicemen. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg has been speaking to some of them and takes up the story.
They were the extra boots on the ground the Kremlin badly needed. The 300,000 reservists mobilised more than a year ago for Russia's war against Ukraine. Antonina's partner was drafted at the age of 44. She says that despite being diagnosed with stomach ulcers, he was deployed to an assault unit. Now he's wounded.
There are some people who want to fight, who volunteer for it and sign contracts. Let them fight. But send us back our husbands who don't want to be there. They've done their duty to the motherland. Send them home.
Antonina has joined other women campaigning to bring their husbands home. Here, they're seeking support from an anti-war politician who wants to run for president. They choose their words carefully. Most avoid criticising the war itself. Still, with dissent in Russia pretty much silenced, this event is unusual, a rare public display of discontent.
When will they decide that our husbands have discharged their military duty? When they are brought back to us with no arms and legs? When they can't do anything because they're just a vegetable? Or do we have to wait for them to be sent back in a zinc coffin?
The Russian authorities have not reacted positively to what amounts to a call for demobilisation. The head of the Russian Parliament's Defence Committee said recently, "Can you imagine in World War II, wives of soldiers asking Stalin to send their husbands home after a year on the front line? It would never happen." His conclusion was that such demands today are being put out there by Russia's enemies. Maria finds talk like that insulting. Her husband and her cousin have been drafted. She understands the Ukraine war is not like World War II. Today, Russia hasn't been invaded. It's invaded Ukraine. But not all Russians can face reality.
Some people act like ostriches. They stick their heads in the sand and try not to think about what's happening. I can understand them. It's hard to accept that in your country the state doesn't need you to be happy. It just treats you as biological material. But if people want to survive, sooner or later they need to recognize this and say that they don't agree.
Antonina had always trusted the authorities. And now?
I used to have enormous respect for Vladimir Putin. Now I'm more neutral. But if he really does see us as traitors and outcasts for wanting our husbands back, I don't understand why he'd have this attitude towards citizens who once voted for him.
In Russia, the possibilities for public protest are limited. So once a week, the women meet by the tomb of the unknown soldier, just to lay flowers. Opponents of the invasion of Ukraine have little sympathy. They say the draftees should have ignored the call-up. Their wives just want their husbands back now. Red carnations, a reminder of the human cost of war. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.